After 2 weeks of mounting tensions with Europe, President Donald Trump stepped back Wednesday from the extraordinary prospect of a conflict with a NATO ally, signaling a retreat from earlier threats involving Greenland. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump stated he would not use military force to take the territory from Denmark, easing immediate fears across Europe and calming financial markets. His comments helped spark a rebound on Wall Street and were followed hours later by further signs of de-escalation. After meeting with NATO's Secretary General, Trump suggested he might soften his tariff threats, claiming progress toward a framework agreement regarding Greenland. The shift marked a sudden reversal in what had been one of the most aggressive and controversial moves of his presidency so far. Still, Trump continued to criticize U.S. allies, accusing them of being ungrateful for not simply handing over what he dismissed as a piece of ice. Such remarks reinforced a growing belief among NATO leaders and longtime partners that the United States can no longer be viewed as a dependable ally, a striking departure from its role over the past 8 decades as the foundation of the transatlantic alliance. The message for Europe is that pushing back can be effective, said a European official who attended Trump's speech and spoke anonymously. There's relief that military force is no longer being discussed, but there's also recognition that he could change course again. Trump's words are unpredictable, but his contempt for Europe is consistent. We must prepare for greater independence because the old assumptions about America no longer hold. Trump's sudden reversal followed a sharp market reaction earlier in the week when fears surrounding Greenland sent shockwaves through global markets, erasing more than $1.2 trillion in value from the S&P 500 alone. The moment echoed a similar episode in April, when the president quickly rolled back broad tariff measures after market turmoil tied to his economic policies. If Trump's pledge to avoid military pressure against Greenland and NATO allies endures, it would represent a victory for more cautious voices within his administration. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, for example, urged European leaders in Davos not to overreact, privately assuring them that tensions would soon ease. The idea of using force appeared to receive strong support from Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, who recently argued that Greenland rightfully belongs to the United States and claimed global politics is ultimately dictated by power rather than diplomacy. However, many inside the administration viewed the military rhetoric as a negotiating tactic rather than a genuine plan. Had Trump pursued force, resistance may have emerged from top officials such as Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance, according to a person familiar with internal discussions. Some senior officials privately question the strategy, the source said, speaking anonymously. But those conversations happen quietly, behind closed doors. Across Europe, anxiety has increasingly spilled into public view. When Trump arrived in Davos on Wednesday, leaders were still reeling from his announcement days earlier that he planned to raise tariffs on several European countries that had participated in military exercises in Greenland. Faced with threats to one ally's sovereignty and economic pressure on others, European officials openly discussed possible retaliation. This marked a notable shift from Trump's earlier return to office, when European leaders resisted initially but ultimately accepted his demands, including higher defense spending, shouldering the financial burden of Ukraine aid, and agreeing to a 15% tariff on EU exports to preserve NATO unity and U.S. support. But Trump's confrontation with Denmark over Greenland went far beyond previous disputes. His demand to purchase the territory, coupled with earlier suggestions of military seizure, crossed a critical threshold for Europe, threatening to unravel decades of cooperation. For many allies, it represented a stunning break from the principles that shaped the post-war alliance system, one designed to prevent precisely the kind of territorial expansion Trump appeared willing to contemplate.